Welcome to An Hour with a Manager, your go-to podcast platform where we share industry insights from the best experts, ranging from customer experience, human resources, and much more. Join us for an hour of informative discussions, practical advice, and inspiring stories from the world of management. Stay tuned.
All right, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome again to this session. Today I'm here with a very wonderful guest, a very wonderful professional, a very wonderful expert who has done amazing job in the recruitment and talent space, and who's a South African. But I won't have to introduce her to all of you. If I have to do that, I don't think we would have the space to talk about the point for today. But I'll prefer when she has to introduce herself and still tell us about those interesting things that makes her who she is. But first, I have here with me Athi Mbete. Athi, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks so much, Matthew. Good evening to the listeners, to everybody that's tuning in on all the platforms. You are putting pressure when you said that there are people already waiting online and keen on this conversation. The pressure just got worse. So I hope I do justice, and I hope I'm able to answer everyone's, topics of concern or areas of interest to the best of my ability. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And it's good to share the stage with you today.
Thank you, Matthew.
All right. So to everyone, you've heard from our guest that she's here to at least to respond to all of our questions, our thoughts, and those curious things, those things that keeps you curious and want you to know more. Please feel free to share them in the comment section. Let's see how we can do justice to it. And if you're not satisfied with that, maybe we can have an after session, or we can have a conversation in the DM or so to answer you better. But thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in, and welcome Athi to our podcast today. Okay, so to go into our conversation today, we're looking at people and service delivery. And last week we talked about employee engagement with one of our guests, Gregorio Glioni, a very senior customer experience personnel who runs a customer experience, a CX Goalkeeper podcast, which you can always tune into, to get the best information from customer experience. And he shared quite a very detailed information regarding to employee engagement and how people can come together, to how organizations, employers can come together to to coexist with employees and get the best value and get the best benefit, the best value for both the business and also the employee, and not just only for themselves, the employer, but also for the employee. And please feel free to as well check up on that link and as well listen to it. But today we're doing something a little bit different, still in the aspect of employee and engagement, but today we're looking at people and service delivery. And today we'll get to understand what service delivery is all about. And these people we're talking about is the employee we have around us, the contractors that we're probably going to be maybe doing business with, right? And then the organizations we're going to be linking up with to make a successful business. Today, Athi will help us give us that proper understanding on what service delivery is first, and then we'll also go in depth into her own personal experience and have a blend of this conversation to know that every professional have a life outside of their professional career. That is very interesting. So thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. So today, if I should just go a little bit up, Athi, for us to get into this conversation, please do you mind, can you share with us, to our audience, to everyone who's listening to this, first, who Athi Mbete is, what has transpired to who you are today, the very wonderful person you are today, who when you actually smile, I know that your smile alone can actually tell people that can be very convincing that yes, you're going to deliver the best value from this conversation.
Yeah, and definitely 100%. And I smile into boardrooms. I smile into meetings. I smile into meetings because I'm very big on bringing softness and femininity into corporate spaces. I am not of the school that, especially us as women, functioning from a masculine energy. So I'll smile quite often during our session this evening. So just to give you a background of myself, I come from the east of South Africa. So just like the Igbos, I believe that they're from the east. And I am Xhosa. I am the Xhosa tribe. one of the tribes, and from besides the Zulus, then you get your Xhosas. So we are the ones that click a lot in terms of our language. And I'm 39 years old, and I'm also an entrepreneur. I have been running my own enterprise or independent firm, which is called Transera Solution, which I started out in 2021. But in terms of being in diversity, equity, and inclusion, from a recruitment perspective, executive search, your talent development, coaching, and facilitation, I've been around the industry for close to a decade. And I've been quite fortunate and privileged in a sense, Matthew, to work with some of the prestigious, I would say, super prime, multinational and global brands that have a footprint in South Africa, and organizations that are functioning in South Africa that have had an appetite to break into the rest of the African continent from a talent perspective. And our business has been quite instrumental in terms of those search, recruitment, and executive search services that we've provided to the organizations. And yeah, so I started our Transera from a coffee shop, solo entrepreneur with no capital. And all I had was an idea. Um, and for me, it has always been about disrupting the industry, revolutionizing what has been there, creating a renaissance in a sense. And a renaissance, there can't be any renaissance without any innovation. So it's always been looking at what has worked in recruitment and enhancing it. And why Transera has been there, like I said, disrupting the space. I find myself operating in an industry or a space that has been occupied by big global brands that are very much male dominated, and that are stuck in their ways. And for me, I believe business is not about being stuck in your ways. I think that's the biggest lesson as well that we've learned from COVID, that one has not to be stuck and be rigid in terms of how you do business. And yeah, so we're here to revolutionize the industry, enhance, improve what has been working, and bring better ways of doing business and servicing our clients. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Athi, for that wonderful introduction. You know, while you were introducing yourself, when I actually said that your smile sparks a lot of engagement, we're having people also saying hello from different parts of the world here. So shout out to that. Shout out to Michael Mana. He's saying hello from LA, that's Los Angeles. We have Jonathan here saying hello from Atlanta, and Jeffrey, hello from LA too, and Eva from Abuja, Nigeria. So it's actually going to be a very interesting one. And thank you for being able to share with us how much you've been able to impact your world, and understanding that business can actually be a win-win situation in a way. And when people come together to understand what they're doing, when two individuals, business actually run by human beings, not bots, right? So
Yeah.
if two people come together to have a close conversation, I think they can have a proper dialogue and come to an agreement. But
Mhm.
for us to get into our conversation today, just to walk us a little bit on what we expect to get from this. What do we understand by service delivery? What's that one thing that we that I think you can share with us for us to understand in depth first, before we even
Mhm.
go into other things about
To
service
other
delivery?
topics. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, as we all know, for anyone who's in business or, corporate or whatever the case might be, we all know that service delivery is about providing a service from business to customer. And then everybody, of course, has their element of distinguishness or your X factor, if I can say, that then begins to set you apart, your own definitions of how you define that. And personally, for me, service delivery, for me and for Transera, it's about that unwavering dedication to excellence, and constantly exceeding our clients' expectations, where we are continuously impacting their business through the types of services that we provide to the organizations that we work with. Yeah. So that's my definition. For me, it's going above and beyond just providing a service. It's the ability to be able to listen to the pain points of your client, because everybody is in recruitment. There's multitudes and tons of recruitment agencies that are out there. There's a lot of businesses that are doing what one is doing, be it like you're a graphic designer, be it you are in digital marketing strategy, but it's the how that you provide the service that begins to set you apart. And for me, that's my definition of service delivery.
Oh, that's I think that is the very detailed way of explaining what service delivery is. And you know, today's world is I would say in today's business world it's quite different from what we used to get before. And most of the conversations, the trends we'll be hearing today is more or less like it's more or less like business with customers, employees with employers, no more employers just give everything out to people. It's now how do you take time to render those services as an
Yeah,
organization, those things that you do. How do you spend time to make it detailed enough for people who are going to be using those things, who are going to be benefiting from it? Most times people find out that, oh, because we are actually good at what we do, and after your first 5 years of being good, the next
yeah.
10 years you're just pushing out shitty things to people, just expecting that, oh, because they
Exactly.
trust your brand,
Yeah,
right?
it's and that's a danger. You become very comfortable. You become very complacent. Eventually, you become mediocre. Because if when I talk about that unwavering dedication means that consistently you're looking for better ways to improve how you service to your clients. For instance, what we do at Transera is that every quarter we check in with our clients in terms of how have we been performing on the basis of the service deliveries that we've been giving to them. And it's not just check-ins, Matthew, where we just do virtual check-ins in the world of virtual where we are in today. I'm very old school, so I prefer going to see clients face to face. I'm very much stepping into their places, into their offices, understanding the dynamics, understanding the culture, because all these elements contribute towards the type of service that you provide at the end of the day. So I push for those quarterly check-in meetings with my clients, just like you going into the doctor or how you take your cough in for a service. And they do all those diagnostic checks. Is your car still functioning fine? And that's the way I think one should look at a client. After having bought that car, all those after sales service, are you still happy with the candidate that you've placed? Are there any pain points in terms of the types of talents that you're experiencing and all of that? And that's where we come in to solve the problem. But the biggest component of it is the ability to listen to your client rather than imposing. And that's what we do a lot of time, is that we come to clients and we impose our services upon them without hearing them out first. Yeah.
True, true. True. I was just about maybe taking you back a little bit to something you mentioned. Talking about you being more of the old school person. So let me ask. So far you've carried out your business. So far you've communicated with clients and the guys you've worked with. What's the challenges you've faced, with the current way of doing business virtually, and you still using the old school method, which is actually, face to face conversation. I want to be there and see what's going on. I don't want to be online to do these things.
So the challenges, like I said, that I find, for instance, like this interview, because I've watched some of the interviews that you've done in your studio, and you guys have done them live with your guest. I find them
Yeah.
more impactful. So you find that when you're having virtual conversations, one, you need to increase the pace, your energy, you engage your core in the conversation, because you're
Yeah.
trying to be careful to be flat and having that monotone approach. Even with the candidates that are interviewed by our clients, interviews now are happening virtually compared to face. When post COVID people would fly in or go to client site, now interviews are being done virtually. And one of the things that I coach candidates when they go for interviews is that engaging your core, bringing your whole energy, your whole self during the conversation in those virtual conversations. And like I said, I'm very big on culture. And in order to understand an organization's culture and to be able to sell the very value proposition, it's important to visit the client site. Let's say in the case of recruitment, if I'm recruiting for a production manager, I need to understand how the plant is set up, how many people are working there, what are the dynamics from a team point of view within the business. And these are the things that I take then when we go into the market to look for talent for our clients, and say that we paint a picture to the candidates that this is a setup, this is a scenario. And so this is where now we find challenges with these virtual meetings without us having to be able to go physically and see their workspaces, etc. Yeah.
So if so for example, I'm actually in Nigeria, right? I'm in
Mhm.
Nigeria here, and I'm reaching out to you for me to as a recruiter, right? I'm reaching out to you for you to maybe connect me up with a particular organization to get my service
Mhm.
down to render those unique services that I actually render. How will you inspect my space for you to be convinced enough, because you're dealing with C-suites, right? You're dealing with
Yeah.
top organizations, right? You're not just dealing with just anybody,
Mhm.
right? So how will you be able to
Mhm.
inspect what I am doing at here in Nigeria for you to be convinced enough that if you reach out to your clients to let them know that, oh, okay, I have this person that can render these services for you because we cannot do that right now. What are
Yeah.
those things that you use to track those data?
Okay, so in cases like that, Matthew, what happens? Because then it's normally the clients that would have those big, thorough interviews with candidates. How the
Okay.
system works is that we tasked, for instance, let's say a Red Bull, and let's say they're looking for a software developer in Nigeria. What
Okay.
we do then, we go into the market in Nigeria, we narrow it down, we call what we call talent mapping, who's sitting where in Nigeria that is working for similar organizations like company XYZ. Then we find your profile, let's say on the portals like that are out there, for instance, your LinkedIn career portals that are out there. What we do then internally is that we will conduct an interview on the basis of your skill set. It's the types of questions that we ask you to analyze, that we're able to present you better to the client. And for us to be able to identify, do you have the skill set, the capabilities, the technical skill set that the client is looking for? And then the client then designs a case study to test your aptitude in terms of your ability to be able to deliver. So for us, it's to screen, submit, and then they take you to a deeper testing formula or method to diagnose that you truly have the skill set that you're talking about. So the other ways that to ensure that, for instance, you've got the right qualifications, etc., we check if your stuff is accredited. Let's say you're holding a degree in software development or whatever. We check with the institutions, with accredited institutions, to show that the certificate that you say you hold is legit and it is
Wow.
credible. Your
You go that far?
identity. Yeah, no, we do. It's like thorough
Wow.
FBI in terms of recruitment. So we call it, yeah, we call it in South Africa. It's called MIE checks, your personal checks, criminal checks. So we do fingerprints checks, the whole 9 yards in terms of system, and then we work with international service provider to be able to get those checks, be it education, your identity, and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Hmm. Wow. Don't you think if you have to be an FBI for me to get my things down, I can still formulate that in today's virtual world? Because I know, don't forget that today we have people who just go to their system and click on any AI tool, and then it has those things recorded for them or done for them, and probably accordingly. How do you guys fight for that?
So I think, Matthew, we're talking about a software dev. You can't formulate and be able. Let's say you are a C type or C sharp developer, and I'd ask you now. So, what are the languages that you use for coding? What are the platforms? As much as you can formulate a CV on your Chat GPT and all the other AI tools, but when I begin to ask you questions in our interview session that is related to the job description itself, that's where I'm going to figure out that this guy is just messing around with my time. You don't know what you're talking about. So it's how you ask the questions, the types of
Okay.
interviews that you take your candidates through, and obviously the case study, the technical aptitude tests that are done as well to identify your skill set over, above, beyond what you've written on your CV and on your document.
So okay, so let's say within this space within the space of you managing talent, right?
Mhm.
Have you ever found yourself in a space where you know that this person is actually good, but
Mhm.
because of some constraints, he or she can't occupy that position? How do you do in such a situation?
So, as we all know, diversity, equity, and inclusion, particularly in South Africa, and I think it's applicable across the world, in Nigeria, be it whether you're in West Africa, East Africa, in cases where organizations have few women that are sitting in executive roles, or in South Africa, predominantly the issue being most positions have been occupied by the white counterparts, etc. So what we're saying through diversity, equity, and inclusion, number one, is that we all deserve an equal chance to sit on the table. And it's a matter of giving people a chance to come on board in the organization. Part of what we do when we submit you to the client is that we are promoting fairness and equality in your talent attraction, your talent recruitment processes in your businesses. And we're saying we motivate, we don't just send your profile, Matthew, as is. Any recruiter can just submit Matthew for the sake of submitting, but I need to motivate to the client why. So the purpose of doing these interviews is to identify things about you over, above, and beyond your skill set, over, above, and beyond your qualifications. Does Matthew fit with the organization? Does he have an appetite and a hunger to grow with your business, etc.? So it's the little things, the little nuances that add into how you build a candidate to be attractable to a client. In fact, I got the name of being called a career fairy godmother, because it's like you're sprinkling fairy dust on a candidate to make them look attractive. And part of what I've found as well, Matthew, is that people struggle to sell themselves to organization. So we not only just submit, we coach you for interviewing. How do you present yourself before a panel? How do you appear? How do you articulate yourself? Showing your strong points, and also saying, yes, I've got weaknesses or developmental areas that I'm working on and I'm proving on. Yeah. So that's part of why we have diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we specialize in that space in South Africa. So, for instance, you might not have a degree in a particular field, but because of the years of experience, I motivate and say this person can be able to execute the task at hand, given a chance, and I give my reasons why.
Wow. To everyone listening to this, I just want to say something real quick that when I asked Athi for her to share me a bio about herself, the first header she attached, which was very, very unique, was she called herself the Chief Fire Igniter and Talent Alchemist. And
Yeah.
trust me, right now, and I can vouch for that name, that she's actually speaking like a chief fire igniter. And thank you for your wonderful work so far that you've been able to do to groom talent, to be able to sell talent, because at that point you're selling talents to top organizations, and
Yeah.
to always be that voice for people to let them know that, oh, this person can actually deliver on his or her task at a particular
Yeah.
time, and also see how
Despite,
to
yeah, and
you
it's
know
despite
bring
your
people together.
background, Matthew. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's despite your background, despite, and people coming, the essence behind diversity, equity, and inclusion in South Africa, it's for people coming from previously disadvantaged background and saying that give them a chance, hear them out. And yeah, they are worthy. I think the
Hello,
most important thing, D and I, it's about worthiness, that we are worthy, we are
can you hear me?
capable. Yes, I can hear
Okay.
you.
Yeah, I think I lost you for a minute or second.
Okay, can
Yeah,
you hear me now? So
yes,
D
I
and
can hear you
I,
now.
for me, it's about worthiness. Like I said, I come from the Eastern Cape, and I've worked my way through the ranks from a corporate perspective, and there's always been somebody at the door who would say that can Ati be given a chance. I've had team leaders who were able to see my potential, and they were able to open up doors for me to be promoted within senior positions within the organizations that I've worked in the corporate space. And that's why I consider myself and Transera to be an advocate when it comes to recruitment or service provision to our clients. Yeah.
So if for all the concepts, all the services you've actually rendered in being that voice for people, which is very amazing. Have there been a time where you feel maybe what you're doing, you're not supposed to be in that space. Maybe you're not supposed to be handling trans era, or you're not supposed to be in recruitment, or you're not supposed to be the voice for the people, right?
Mhm.
To speak for people.
Mhm. Um, I've never had that, Matthew. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So I've never, if I can be honest with you, with this business, I can say it has been a calling. And part of starting a business, it comes with a lot of challenges. I believe that if you start a business with the wrong reasons, it's easy for you to quit. If I can start there. So it's your motive and your agenda of your why. Why did you start in the beginning? And like I said, for me, it's a personal thing. I was on the other side of the fence from a corporate perspective, and I've always had people that have given me a chance when it comes to corporate spaces. And Transera is an extension of that as well. So hence, I'm saying that I've never, as much as it's been tough in the beginning, and you have your tough seasons within business, I've never had that desire to look back and say that I'm going to quit, I'm done. No.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
it goes
And
back, it actually goes back to your why, your intention, your motive. Why are
right,
you starting the business? Is it just about making money? Because if I think if you're starting business just to make money, it's going to be short-lived. Great people start businesses, they do well for that matter of sake, and
yeah.
they even sell their businesses and move on to the next. But it differs for each and every entrepreneur and every individual. So for me, it's a question why, and the why will give you sustainability and longevity in the game.
And we don't have a lot of people who decide or who choose to ask why these days, because like you've talked about it, asking the why question. Yeah, you might want to start the business just for the
Yeah.
sake of making money. Yeah, you're going to make the money, but how much do you really like what you're doing or enjoy what you're
Yeah.
doing? Because even when you're actually going to make the money, if you look at it on a long run, you might get tired of it, right? If it's not a passion, because when those challenges come,
Mhm.
when those challenges come in particular, and
It's
you
it's
don't really
easy to
believe in
quit
what
and
you're
walk
doing,
away. Yeah, you pack your stuff
you
and you
would
shut
walk
the
away.
door.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you
right.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in all, let me understand. I know you're a family person, you have your
Mhm.
kids, but in all that you've done, how were you able to balance up your professional career? How were you able to balance your professional career and then your personal life? That's your family, your kids. How do you get to balance that? I know that before we came on this call, you were already
Yeah.
trying to settle out everybody
So
so that
yeah.
make sure that mama is done with everybody. But right
Yeah.
now, how have you been able to push that up for the past decade and still counting? How's the experience been for you?
I think as an entrepreneur, balance is a fantasy. There's no such thing as balance, Matthew. And personally speaking from myself,
Why?
but because you're juggling and wearing a lot of hats, and along the way you're not going to be able to master everything. And I'll speak about my business. Transera is currently 3 years old, and it's sort of like an infant moving into a toddler stage that requires a lot of attention. So there's been some soccer matches that I've had to miss. There's been some of my son's stuff that I've got to miss, some home duties that I've missed out on because of the demand of the business. So that's why I'm saying, for me personally, balance is a myth, it's a fantasy, not at this point in time. I think once your business starts to get to a space where it's stable, you've built a big team, you've got your processes, your systems in place, you can then take a sit back. But versus when there's a big demand for you as the entrepreneur or the visionary within the business, it's sort of a luxury. So there's been a compromise along the line. And it's something that I've also made peace with as well, Matthew, because sometimes you end up crucifying yourself and feeling bad that I've done bad, for instance, as a single
Yeah,
mother to my
yeah,
sons, because I've not been 100% there in their lives. But these are the conversations that I've had with my kids, that mom has to invest in Transera her time, because Transera is what is also taking care of us. So they understand. Then the most important thing then is that it's to outsource the functions that you're not able to do for yourself. So by bringing in like tutors to assist your kids, be it on homework stuff, bringing in extra help from a house perspective to support you in terms of the functions that you're not able to do.
yeah. So if you had to, putting all of this together, it's actually a profession on its own, because
It is.
I know the conversation around work-life balance is something that we have people who get to talk about it, and not that it doesn't exist. Work-life
Yeah.
balance actually is, like you said, at that initial stage, you are needed full
Yeah.
time. It's like
Yeah.
full-time employment, right? Until you get
It's a
stability,
full
then
time baby. It's like
yeah,
you've given birth. Like, I'm a mom twice. So it's like you've got
yeah.
this baby who needs your attention,
Who
has
needs
to sit on top
attention?
of your chest until they can stand on their own and they can run
You
out
have to be
there.
there for them.
Exactly.
All right.
So definitely, in terms of that self-care, I agree. It's very important because it's also important to lead from a place of where your cup is full, constantly trying to fill your cup. So I do make conscious, deliberate decisions, Matthew, where I block out some time where I'm like, I'm gonna take time off.
Okay.
I've built a team now. We are currently five, six of us. So I've got my second in charge who assists in the business when I'm not there. So it's also making those conscious, deliberate decisions to cut out some time for yourself and do things to take care of yourself and also to, take care of those who need you from a personal perspective as well.
Well, you know, for me, let's say my team at now with the manager, then when we actually started
Mhm.
out, I had this very great challenge of trying to do it all before I
Mhm.
had a team. I
Yeah,
had this challenge of trying to do it all, and yeah, it was interesting at the start. But when you actually start something and you have plans, you have a long term plan. I
yeah,
won't advise you do it alone. You have to, in one way or the other, you have to bring in team members to simplify that work process. And since we started having team members, started having designers, having content
yeah.
creators who schedule out those contents with amazing thoughts, I think that has really, really improved, and we're still improving our services, and that's really been helpful. So
Exactly, and it
yeah,
even shows the excellence definitely does come true and show, Matthew, versus when you started, because now you've got this team and support, which is something that I've also observed with a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners when they start. When you're so used to being the only entrepreneur or the only person in your business, you're so scared to let go and you become attached to your baby,
yeah,
and you don't think you can trust other people to treat your baby or the vision the same way that you do so. And I believe when you do that, you are limiting your growth. Transera wouldn't have achieved the success that we've achieved today if I was alone. Great, I've done phenomenally well personally on myself as a solo entrepreneur, but I could only
yeah.
do so much. So it's important, Matthew, to always make sure that you get out of the way of the vision so that you don't block the vision, especially if we're talking something that's long term, that's sustainable, if we're talking something that's a legacy. When I started Transera, I didn't start Transera for it to be a business that's going to be like 5 year or a 10-year organization and then I'm done and I move on to the next. For me, I'm building a legacy for my children and the generations to come. And therefore, it's important then that you bring in the right structures, the processes to ensure you build towards that long term vision. So it goes back to what is the long term goal? After asking yourself the why and knowing your why, then what is the long term plan and the long term goal?
So in understanding the name Transera, it sounds very, very unique in its
Uh-huh,
view.
uh-huh.
How did you come up with the name Transera?
So
Transera
Transera,
Solutions.
yes, Transera is I actually the name came about. I registered the company in 2016. However, I started to operate it in 2021. Transera means meeting people or organizations that are going through a renaissance, a transitional era. So
Okay.
if you're going through change, and you're ready for change, then Transera will begin to appear. It's actually it's founded like under the scripture on Jeremiah 6 verse 16. It says, "Ask of me of the ancient paths, and I'll show you where the good way is." So I appear when you're ready for the good way. I stand like a conduit to guide you into your big era, because era means it's
Like a
great
fire
change.
igniter.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like we're meeting people that are going through a transition
Yeah.
into their next big. And as a result, Matthew, even with the candidates that we've placed, be it director at C-suite level or just a junior entry role, we've had such great success that these people stay within organization. Because how we even place candidates, I don't place candidates that I know that are they're just in this position or applying for a short-term plan. Um, people that we've placed, they've stayed with organization, they've contributed into the ROI, they've changed and impacted our clients' businesses in a very great, fantastic way. So it goes back to the questions again. During our screening and interviewing processes, we ask you, what are your goals? Where do you see yourself? What types of organizations do you see yourself working in? What is the culture? What type of management and leadership do you want to work under? And if I see that there are synergies between you and my client, then I create the dance. It's like I formulate the stage for you two parties to do your dance and figure if you guys can do your dance, whether it's Amapiano or Afrobeat or whatever the case might be. Yeah, so we create a dance. We're just there to formulate a stage for two parties to dance. And that's part of service delivery. It's finding people that have a synergy with what you're trying to achieve. Are they aligned with your values, your corporate values? Are they aligned with your long-term visions as your business, as an organization? Like you said, you brought in staff to support. Do they understand the vision of your organization, where you guys are going? And can they co-create with what you guys are trying to create within an organization? And that's part of our service delivery.
So if I may ask, for businesses that actually, when we started out, I shared something about organizations that when they start, for the next for the first 2-3 years, they're actually good. After 3 years of sustainability, of seeing that they are of big value and people really need them, they bring down the value of their services or product or whatever the case may be. So what would you say to such organizations that maintain such process? Because you know that in starting in growing businesses, right? Everybody wants to be everybody wants to be good, but we have businesses that at a stage they are just the way they are. They're not growing, they're not moving,
Yeah,
but they keep increasing in the prices. They're not they
yeah.
keep increasing the price of the services. So how does such business come to play?
But the quality or the service, the standard has dropped, and there's nothing wow that quantifies to the value of what they're charging.
But they
Um,
keep increasing the pay. They keep increasing the
yes,
charges.
exactly. But the value, the quality of what they're providing, it's
Yeah.
still the same and nothing wow. So I like to reference to myself about my business, Transera. As I've mentioned, Transera is 3 years old now. And before we used to do our own strategies by ourselves. So at beginning of the year, we have our annual strategy plan. Then mid-year, that's in June, month end June, we have our mid-year check-in to see how we've progressed as a business in terms of the goals and the objectives that we've set for the year. And we actually have that coming up now in the first week of July. And same applies when we're about to wrap up the year. We have another check-in again to see how we've performed. Have we achieved our goals? What have been the pain points? The problem is that people do not know how to pause, or entrepreneurs or businesses that refuse to scale, they do not know how to pause and reflect. And I think it's important, Matthew, to pause and reflect on the journey, to pause and reflect on the performance. What are the mistakes that are we making? To do your SWOT analysis, look at your strengths, the areas of threats and all of that, if you are a business with long-term objectives. Of course, if you're there for the money, then you're not going to be bothered by that. In fact, recently, one of my coaches, he told me that bring in somebody who's an external strategist to come and help you with your media strategies and your year-end strategies. As a result, now in our June strat, we're bringing in somebody who's a financial expert, also a human capital expert, who's going to help us look at our plan. Where have we gone wrong? And how do we get to our goals? We've got 5-year plans set out. How are we planning to get there and all of that? So it's important, Matthew, to pause and look, assess, analyze, diagnose, and then plan and move forward from there. Those check-ins again that I talk about doing with clients, are they happy with your performance? It's important. Customer feedback is quite important. Candidate feedback, even for us, how our candidates experience us is very much important, because also our candidates are gold. If you're doing business for long term, then these are the things that you need to start applying. Those little principles that might seem simple, but these are the principles that you need to apply apply to build a sustainable business. Transera, one of the things about Transera that we are in business, it, like I said, it's not about the money. It's about relation. Business is about relationships that you build, relationships with your clients, relationships with the candidates, relationships with your suppliers. So it's maintaining all of those elements that are quite key in the performance of your business and the long term as well.
Oh, but talking about setting out goals and plans and long term and short term goals. It can be very tricky in doing that.
Yeah,
So how
it
how do you
is.
how do, how
It
do you
is
beat
quite
how do
tricky,
you
and
beat
I agree. So it is quite tricky. For instance, it's quite tricky if we're looking now with the changes that are happening, technological advances, things that are coming in to disrupt the spaces that we're functioning in. Um, those things are spontaneous. Like we didn't plan for COVID. No one planned for COVID. And one has to then quickly think. I always say that it's important for people not to be stuck in their ways. It's also important, Matthew, to observe the trends, to always keep your finger on the pulse of action. So I read a lot about, the trends in our industry to get a bigger understanding, not only from a South African context, but from an Africa context and globally as well. Because we're saying that we want to play with global players. We want to we want to provide services to global organizations. We want to provide services to multinational organizations. So we also read and study into what the trends that are happening in their industry. We don't only
Okay.
provide services, to instance, in the FMCG sector. We deal with clients in telecommunications, in the banking, in the retail space. So it's important to know what's going on in their space, their environments, that we're able to tailor our services according to their needs and the changes that are happening within the business, in their businesses. So agility is very important. Do not be rigid and stuck in your ways because you're going to be left behind. I think if you look at the companies that have fallen back after COVID, it's as a result that they refuse to change. One of the things that I'm also adapting to and learning as a leader and an entrepreneur is the whole hybrid and remote style of working. I'm traditional, I'm old school, as I've mentioned. I'm so used to rocking up at work by 8 o'clock. I'm already seated at my seat and I must be seen by my boss sitting at my table every day. But what the Gen Zs are teaching me is that I don't have to show up at work every day. I can do my work sitting, working remotely. And we are in what we call the gig economy. If a person
But
has
but but
completed a
but,
task,
but sorry to interrupt a little bit. How did that experience make you feel? That switch of you having to see yourself instead of going to work at every point
so
in time.
so we have an office, but the team that works at Transera, they're quite young. They are your Gen Zs, your millennials, and stuff like that. And so they come from a culture of we're quite flexible, we can work. At first, I struggle. I'm not gonna lie, because I thought they're not working. But what I've come to understand is output and the type of output that they bring out. So it's not about the number of hours, Matthew, that you're sitting on your chair. Just because you're sitting at your table from 8 to 5 p.m. doesn't mean that you're productive and you're giving me quality output. So that it means as a business, you need to change your measuring metrics of how do you measure outputs? What are your KPIs to adapt to the new norm of remote working and hybrid? Like for instance, you mentioned earlier on a scenario of having somebody working for a South African company, but they're based in Nigeria, and that we find that happens quite a lot. So, which means that businesses also need to look for new ways to measure performance of talent in this new world. We call it the VUCA world, volatile, changing world. So how do you measure the performance of your team, your organization, without you seeing them? How do you even, it's called remote management. How do you manage somebody that you're not seeing and you've never seen face to face before, who's probably sitting somewhere in Europe and you are in Africa?
Yeah, I'm happy you're bringing up the conversation around remote work very closely because it's something I am actually recently I've actually been developing likeness for understanding how remote work process is because most of let me say 80 or 90% of my team members actually we do business remotely, right? Probably we see maybe once or twice in a year, which is very important for that physical connection. So in looking at remote work and the future of how technology is actually pushing and changing space, Gen Z is doing a whole lot of things, making up changes to how we perceive work then in the past compared to now. How do you think that is going to impact the world of business, the world of work so far? Because you wake up in the morning, like you said, it's a volatile world right now. You wake up in the morning and there's a change that you if you don't adapt to it, you might get lost. How do you deal with that?
I think, Matthew, the most important thing is trusting your people, trusting your team, and trusting that they are going to deliver. It's important. It's the relationship element. And like I said, there's these things now of freelancing and gig economy. People can take on many opportunities while still providing you a service or working in your organization. I'm of that school that if you carry out the work that I expect of you according to the job description, then whom am I to stop you freelancing, carrying on other gigs on the side that you can bring in extra income? If we're looking at the inflationary costs, the cost of living today, which is exponentially like jumped through the roof. So and exactly, and let's say your business can't afford at this point in time to give those, drastic salary increases, then why must you stand in the way of somebody then looking for other alternative methods of bringing in income into their household if they have the ability to freelance while they're doing their remote work? So it's the most important thing is to build that relationship with your team, your talent in your organization. Can you trust them? Are they delivering? Then why should you block them from doing extra gigs? And it's something that I'm promoting within Transera as well. The team, we have a very entrepreneurial spirit. One of our heads of recruitment and D&I advisory, she has a side gigs. She runs her own company on the side where she does digital strategy on the side. And we sat down, we had a conversation, and I just asked her, is this going to impact Transera, your performance? And she's like, you've seen my performance. They speak for themselves. She's one of our top recruiters. And this has not impacted how she's performed in the business. In fact, she's doing well and she's juggling quite a lot of stuff at one stage. And, with recruitment, like I said, this is our busiest time for the year. We have quite a number of roles, but she's doing that quite well. And it's one of the things that I'm learning with Gen Zs. They catch on things quite quickly. They're able to juggle a lot of stuff at one go. So why should you hold people to doing same thing over and over? Allow the freedom, the ability, and the flexibility.
Oh, sorry. To those listening, I just saw a comment. I just saw what do you call it? A comment here. Sorry, Victor. I don't know the trouble you're having with your phone. Maybe you could try. You could try using the link on a browser. That might help. Maybe that Chrome browser or Safari. That might help too. So thank you very much to everybody who's tuning into this conversation. I'm seeing very wonderful comments here. Shout out Emily Aneno, who will be our guest in July. And shout out to everyone who's been able to tune into this conversation. Please keep the questions coming in, keep the comments coming in. That's motivating enough for us to keep this going. So I got a question from the audience while you were sharing your insights with remote teams, which is very important, and we're going to come back to that. Saying, okay, the question is, what are some of the key takeaways you had that in, let's say, first the question is if you've hosted workshops and conferences for recruitment and talents.
So, who asked that question? They
I think
definitely.
that came directly to my inbox.
Okay, they're definitely speaking into our future plans of Transera.
All right.
We definitely are looking at organizing and hosting our own, but definitely I've extended. So I've done quite extensive networking, Matthew, within our industry from an HR perspective, but other industry like the mining weeks and all of that, just to understand the trends. It's very important. Yeah, so it's definitely in the pipeline. I'll come back to the group and this page to share when we've started to put together and finalize the dates. And it's certainly something that we're looking to taking into the rest of beyond South Africa as well.
So are there any trends? Are there any trends we're looking at in recruitment and talents in the future
So
that you think that is
I
going to be
think
a
the biggest
disruptor?
trends and the fears right now is the technology taking over quite a number of roles. That's the biggest concern from a talent point of view. it's a big concern that people are going to be replaced by machines.
Do you think
And
so?
I mean, we're looking at roles in terms of your tech-driven roles, your finance-driven roles. They are going to be impacted. I mean, look at your typical retail stores now, where people they don't need cashiers anymore, and that's slowly coming into Africa. We tend to catch quite late on the trends, but it's definitely coming in. So a simple person like a cashier eventually will be replaced. And one of the things that I always advise in my career coaching is that one needs to always look for ways to, how do you upskill yourself in the VUCA world that we are in? Taking your cashier skill set, for instance, and evolving and moving so that to ensure that you are irreplaceable within the talent world or the human capital space. Yeah. So that's the biggest thing that stands out. A biggest fear that I get a lot from talent is the fact and the fear of being replaced. Things like customer service, call centers. We're seeing now that there's a big trend where bots are taking over. We're no longer being answered by an actual human on the other side of the phone. You're dealing with a bot, and only eventually, after you've gone through all the clicking and stuff, then they take you through, to an actual human being to answer those particular questions and stuff like that. But slowly and gradually, we're seeing that replacement of human by technology.
As regarding to the future of work and technology, for me, I don't know if I'll call it, I preach to people these days is,
Mhm.
it's not about being scared of technology coming in, but
Yeah.
what are you doing to understand the technology that is coming in? Because in as much as it's coming in, it's taking out jobs, and it's also
Yes.
replacing jobs. It's also giving room
Yeah.
for new jobs, new ways of doing things, right? Before,
Exactly.
you have to sit long hours to probably run a research, right? But if you
Mhm.
have those data in one spot, with the right inputs, you can give it to
Mhm.
AI, and then it can give you with the right prompt, yeah, and can give it
Mhm.
the right information for you to run that up for you in less than no time. Highest, what you're going to do is to sit back again and look at it with the eyes of the human, because AI is just a bot, but you,
Yeah.
who is human, actually know
Exactly.
what's the real thing for your brand, right? So
I
I,
love
I
what
don't know
you're
if
saying,
yeah,
Matthew. I love what you're saying because, like I said, the human capital space and the space that I function in is about people.
yeah,
And I'm a very human centric person. Yes, we are in the days of technology, the era of technology, but at the same time, it's bringing that human centricness, doing things that the robot or your chat GPTs or AIs are not able to do. For instance, I can tell somebody who uses your AI to write their captions on LinkedIn, it's quite
yeah,
predictable.
of
Because
course,
it
yeah.
loses that human, it loses that human element. It loses your essence. If I know you, Matthew, I know your style of communicating, and I then definitely should know the way that you also write. And your captions will tell me that you wrote this yourself or you formulated. So it's important that even though technology is taking through, we shouldn't use our human element, be it in our jobs, giving that touch, that Midas touch of excellence, be it in the way that you write, the way that you communicate. Those are the little things that we can enhance what we're doing already. Yeah.
And in what do you call it, in talking about response to how people actually write,
Yeah,
it's creating space for it's creating a space for creative thinking, right? That's
exactly.
the opportunity people need to also in engage into their business or day-to-day activities. So well, it's a good one, and it's so awesome, it's so wonderful to understand the future of what recruitment is also going to look like, and amazing
Mhm.
things doing in trans era. And I'm looking forward to the events which you'll be hosting very soon. Let's see how we can probably have some wonderful conversations together, and
Absolutely. Yes,
have
and
some great,
collaborate.
yeah, of course. So just quickly, let me get something right. So in the organizations you've worked with, let's say in
Mhm.
most of the clients, what are some of those things that they pick the most, that that is always recurrent about your business process, that is always good, that's different from every other person, that's
Mhm.
very unique, that's different from every other person, that you can share with every one of us
Yeah.
here to also learn from and adapt into our own culture?
Okay. So, like I said earlier on when we started, the recruitment executive industry is a space that is quite occupied by very old organizations. And
Why?
old oh it's if you look at the competitors that I don't want to mention names, but some of the organizations that we compete with, for the lack of a better word, that we provide services to our clients, they're quite old in their way of providing a service, old in their methods and all of that. And one of the feedbacks that we've been given is that we're quite eclectic in terms of there's a vibrancy, that human element that we're bringing in the service provision. Like for instance, how I write my motivation when I'm submitting candidates in our candidate packs to clients. We bring in that human element with they are well thought of. It's not something that are AI generated. We sit down, we apply our mind on the basis of my engagement, for instance, with Matthew. How did I find Matthew? How is he a fit for your organizations? And these are the things that we build up on the candidate pack and we submit to the client. Over, above, and beyond, like I said, Matthew, as well, it's a fact that we listen to our clients to understand what are the pain points, what are their challenges. We don't just come in and shove in solutions to the clients that we just think out of our head and think that this is going to work. In fact, we've had to tailor make our solutions, adjust and amend how we service provide to accommodate each and every of our clients' needs. So we avoid a blanket approach. Not everything that works for one specific client is going to work for another organization. So we always shift and adapt to each and every client's need.
So even when you build your structure, you still have to review it again for each organization.
Exactly. Yeah. So the SLAs that we sign, the PSLs, they're quite different. Our terms of engagement, our rules of engagement, they're very different, because we want to ensure that each and every client, they receive a distinct service according to what they're looking for in their business. And like I said, also it's going above and beyond. Matthew, don't relax. The moment that you think that you're successful, you quickly need to get out of that mindset. So when I don't operate from a mind of success. I started out Transera in a coffee shop. That's the same mindset that I use even today. That same Athi who was hungry, because I believe hunger will drive you and set you apart. I love to come into rooms and look like I'm the underdog. I may not have the big words and the glamorous big English, but when it comes to delivering, they know that I execute, and I execute damn well, pardon my French. So it's about execution, time. Clients, they want time, you're conscious of time delivery. If you said 24 hours, deliver ahead of 24 hours. So we deliver even before the project deadline to set us apart.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. I'm trying to imagine the amount of energy you have to put in to do the work, when you talked about giving out time and saying at this time you have to do a particular thing. I remember the first day I actually made a statement that on this podcast we're going to be here for as long as. While I made that statement, it dawned on me. I dawned on me that for 2 weeks we didn't have a guest for our podcast conversation, and I was just laughing. I was just smiling. And I was like, wait, is this what happens when you make a decision to deliver accurately on your services, or
Exactly.
it's just happening to us for the first time? But over time, I just got used to it. I know that it's one of those challenges I have to face, and
it is. And I've had my own radio show. So you don't just bring in anybody for the sake of bringing. It's about the value. What value are they bringing to your audience? It's value. What value are you bringing to your client? Rather not do anything. In cases where I feel that I can't deliver to my client, I'm quite honest, and I say, hey, but I'm happy to reach out, collaborate with somebody that will achieve the objective, than just rather putting somebody for the sake of putting. Then it compromises the trust, the quality, and the relationship that you have with the client. So rather don't have anyone.
Is there by time where compromise have actually been a very big factor for you?
No. In what context, though? Let me just understand, Matthew. Compromise in terms of how.
Talking about what you just shared right now, and where you have to
Yeah.
compromise just to say, oh, I can do the job. Meanwhile, you can't actually deliver, but you just have to compromise. And let's say a talent, someone you're supposed to bring in, but you have to compromise for him to go do that job and get it done.
No, I don't. So there's a saying that says that if you can't bite an apple, or if you can't finish an apple, find people to help you chew the apple, right? You go look for experts in the field. So part of what we've done with Transera Solutions, we've evolved beyond doing recruitment executive search. We've gone into HR tech solutions where we do talent mapping, salary comparator living, global reports living, and all of that. And this means that we've had to go in and partner with experts who are software developers who've designed for us dashboards. We have a team now of a research team. And this means that we've not compromised on our service. We've benchmarked our services at the standards of your Conferries, your McKinseys, all the big players in the research component. And we've done it well, but it was about collaborating with the right people who are experts in the field. So there's no compromise, but collaboration instead of compromising. Collaborate.
Okay, so if I just wanted to bring this up, that in all that you've done with in all that you've done with talents, communicating with top organizations and all the likes in Africa, what is that centered thing that you've noticed from talents that is something that needs changes instead of a steady process that is always happening? Probably we have talents these days who say, I can actually deliver on the job, but I can't deliver on the job. They have very wonderful resume, but they can't deliver. What is that trend that you're seeing in talents that you think needs some changes for the future of work?
So I was actually chatting to somebody earlier on, and like I said to you as well earlier on, it's the fact that people don't know how to position themselves for the job market, Matthew. The fundamentals of just presenting a good CV, it's not just about the graphics. When I interview, I always ask candidates to paint a picture for me, their day to day. Beyond what you do being an interviewer for a podcast, there's a preparation that you do, the behind the scenes. And that's the information that I'd like to see when I see your CV. What is the stuff that Matthew does behind the scenes that we don't get to see above and beyond the camera? And this is the information that I pull. In fact, I was talking to one lady who commented on this show, and I said that she needs to optimize her profile. She's worked for sensational global organizations, but how she's positioned herself is very light as a result thereof. So it's a matter of people teaching themselves, how do I position myself well for the organization or the opportunity that I want to get? Same applies with business. There's a way that you put your best foot forward. If you're saying that you want to interview global people, even your brand, your Instagram page, it has to look global. It must have that global feel. The way that you design your posters, there's a global feel into it. There's quality, there's excellence, there's a clean, sleek look into it, because the way that you positioned yourself, it's just not only about Nigeria, but you're trying to speak into a global audience. And here you are today, you've got people tuning in from the United States, in Atlanta, and all of that, all because of the way that you positioned yourself. So same applies when you are somebody who's in the talent space looking for opportunities. How do you position yourself? Simple things like a picture, the picture that you use on your LinkedIn profile. I encourage people to go. In South Africa, we have a lot of picture places now that you can quickly pop in and you take a picture quickly and you post it up on your LinkedIn profile. Take time to write your profile over, above and beyond the generic stuff that you're giving on a job description when you sign your contract. Build it up so that it's attractable to a potential reader or a potential hiring manager, that they will hire you. There's a lot of people that are out there, Matthew, who are looking for work. The reality of youth unemployment and unemployment across South Africa and in Nigeria, I know for that effect as well, and for the rest of Africa. Africa is dealing with a huge issue of unemployment. But the question is that, how do you set yourself apart from another a potential employee, and it's a way that you position yourself, starting from your LinkedIn profile, the CV that you put. It's not about the Canva design, but it's about the detail. Break down the work that you do, the background, give detail. If you've worked on projects, highlight the types of projects. If you've had achievements, both in your current and previous roles, put that information in your CV, because that's what's going to make you sellable. It's like you're going to buy a Toyota. But what does a Toyota have? It's the blows and the whistles that make you want to buy the latest Toyota, because of the technology, A, B, C, and D. So same applies with you and your resume. And these are the things that can guarantee you to stand out in the market and can secure you employment. Then fine tune yourself in terms of interviews. There's a lot of content that's out there today, Matthew, in terms of how to go on interviews. How do you position yourself? Check out content creators around all these topics that are key in the future you, or the future that you're trying to build.
Oh, and just to add to the key points Athi has mentioned, always request for recommendation. It speaks a whole lot
Yes.
for credibility. Yeah,
Absolutely.
recommendation makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So thank you very much, Athi, for all you've been able to inspire or share with us. And truthfully, like I mentioned, I'm going to certify you a chief fire igniter and talent alchemist right now. So thank you very much for the wonderful conversation, and thank you very much for everybody who's been able to tune in with us. And sorry, Victor, for the challenges you're experiencing, and to everyone who's been able to stay with us from different platforms, who's been able to engage in these conversations, the questions. And to those who also be listening to this or watching this video later, we really appreciate your time. And Athi here has been able to share in-depth information on how we can go about recruitment and the future of talent, and what we need to do to set ourselves at the top of everything that we're doing. When we're rendering services is no more how it used to be. Spend some time to look long term. Spend some time to plan long term. Don't just do it because you want to just get rich quick. Yes, you might want to get rich quick, but the ripple effect is what you're going to be looking at. And if you're like myself, who don't joke with your name, then I think you're going to be working with integrity. And because of trying to build integrity, you make sure to deliver properly on your services. And don't worry, from all of this conversation, understand that it's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are very, very okay. But don't just sleep on the mistakes. When you make mistakes, realize them, wake up and get going. Keep correcting.
Move quickly from failure.
Yeah, exactly. Keep doing, keep adding, and then you're going to finally get there, because nobody just woke up and then became wherever they are. It's through consistent process, right? It's those daily habits, those daily things that you do that will continue to make a lot of sense for you. And before we wrap up this conversation, I still see that you have lots of things to share with our audience today. I
think we definitely started to get our rhythm. We found our frequency and our rhythm. Okay. And especially, when you don't know each other, but it's about finding the frequency and the rhythm. And I think we definitely achieved it as we went along in the journey. I certainly look forward, Matthew, to engaging further, answering any future questions that your audience might have. And going deeper on conversations around the future of talent, and all of those things. Yeah, but thank you so much. It has been such a great platform and an opportunity to speak. Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, so before you leave, do you have any key takeaway that our audience should leave with today after listening to all of this wonderful conversation from you?
Oh, yes. Be stubborn with your vision. So I'm a very stubborn woman. So I'm very stubborn. I don't quit easily.
In a positive way.
In a positive way, yeah. It's a beautiful stubborn, not a toxic. No. It's not a toxic. It's not a toxic stubborn. But it's a very beautiful. I've channeled it into a beautiful way that has been very instrumental in business, and that's why I'm saying that be stubborn with your vision. I spoke earlier about that. Do not quit. I know we're living in times where people walk away, they quit easily, walk away from friendships so easily, quit easily on relationships and on jobs, but don't quit on the vision. I think I'm just speaking to entrepreneurs or somebody in the corporate space. Don't quit. Everywhere that you step in will build up to your journey. I started out my career in a coffee shop. I was serving in a coffee shop, and that experience that I attained serving coffee in a coffee shop has taught me so much about customer service, how I serve my clients. It's just that attention to detail and the excellence. So the little things that you count simple, you don't know in the next 10 years to come the impact that can have in your life. So never take for granted the opportunity you are in. Whether you're cleaning toilets, sweeping floors, that thing is going to count in the later years to come. It's absolute gratitude. Be grateful. Take opportunity with such gratitude, and always stay hungry. I think this is one of the things that sets us apart as Africans. We were talking earlier on when we were speaking, Matthew, about Nigerians. Wherever Nigerians step, they are very known for being industrious, and it's as a result of hunger. Hunger will make you industrious, and you will be able to deliver. So never quit that hunger, no matter how successful you become, the amount of assets and material that you attain over the journey. But it's a hunger that will always set you apart, because you will always look for ways to improve yourself. And be open to collaboration. We're not in competition. Collaborate. So if you want to connect with me and chat, and you need some guidance, and you want us to collaborate, open up doors for each other, whether in South Africa, Nigeria, wherever in the part of the world, let's connect, let's collaborate, because that's the way of the future. That's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned as well from COVID, that do collaborate with others from a sustainability growth. And also diversify your portfolio, whether you're a corporate professional. Don't just look into, mix your streams of income. Even in business, if you're doing recruitment, there are many smaller elements in recruitment that you can diversify your portfolio in. In that way, you create multiple streams of income. In that way, should we have any other economic abruption or whatever, there's other methods of money coming into your business to sustain you. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you for that wonderful tip. And like you've heard, diversify, but don't just diversify to anywhere, because diversification can be very tricky if you don't get it right. So just try to get it right.
Yeah, master your areas. Of course, I've mastered recruitment. Like I said, I've been in this for almost 10 years. And as a result of mastering one field, I've now been able to branch out into other things as well.
Right. Yeah. So mastery is very important, and be patient with yourself. So thank you very much, Athi Mbete, for this wonderful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to more talks like this. And to everyone, please do well to follow An Hour with a Manager on all your favorite channels on social media, and even on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, and I know we're supposed to publish our YouTube video. I think I made a post sometime early this week about why we're unable to make that publication. We're having a little bit of difficulty or challenges. To me, what I share with my team member is that this is a new phase of challenge. We've actually unlocked the live podcast, and we are doing good at it, at least to an extent, even though we are not there yet. But the YouTube channel is actually a new phase of challenge, which we have to face and see how to balance up. And by the grace of God, we are going to get that. Although we found ourselves an editor who is going to be making some of those wonderful cuts for us to have wonderful information on our YouTube channel. So please do also always subscribe to those buttons as well. And let's continue to share valuable information with you. And like I always say, I'm going to be here for as long as next week. We have a very wonderful guest who will be sharing quality information with us. That is Abike, who is actually an HR who also gets deeper into recruitment and tell us what's going on in the HR space. And let's have some conversation with employee. And July is already fully packed up. Trust me. And now with Manager is here for you guys. Let's continue to promote inclusivity. Let's continue to promote collaboration, like Athi have said. Let's continue to bring conversations together and ask questions, because if you attend our podcast and then you don't go back to ask yourself questions, then probably you didn't sit to listen to this show. So, but when you're here, it's that space for you to sit down, ask yourself personal questions, and review what you've been doing, review your processes, and see if it's actually right, or if there's some changes you need to make it better for you. But trust me, whenever you have those difficulties, always reach out. If you know you can't navigate it, reach out. Do well to reach out to Athi. You can also reach out to me, and let's see how we can sit down to have this conversation. And particularly, if you're seeing how to push up remote team, you want to start a remote team or remote process in your business, please feel free to reach out to me, and we can have a conversation. And I can always walk you through that process, because I'm also concerned about the future of work. And I know that remote and hybrid is actually the future. And the earlier we start to make that process simplified for us here in Africa and the world at large, the better for us. So, but in all, thank you very much for everyone who's been able to stay put with us to this end. And